Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, Start Your MBA Journey in Ireland with UCD Smurfit Business School. My name is Nelly and I will be the moderator on behalf of the prep team. Today you will learn how an MBA degree from UCD Smurfit School can bring you a great career success. We will talk about the application process, available scholarships and career prospects. Our first speaker will be Catherine Del Sesto, but before giving the word to Catherine, I just want to let you know that you can ask questions anytime during the webinar, just typing in the Q&A box. All questions are welcome, so don't hesitate. So I think that everything is set now, and I'm giving the floor to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much. I will just bring up the presentation here. I always forget I can't move slides by a keyboard. There we are. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we have people from all different time zones, and some of you are up quite late. So we really appreciate your being here for this webinar. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of UCD Smurfit School. My name, as mentioned, is Catherine Del Sesto. I am the program manager for the full-time MBA here at UCD Smurfit, and I'll be your MC for this evening's session. So our agenda for this afternoon is to give you an overview of the MBA options available at UCD Smurfit, with a special emphasis on the experience of international students on the full-time MBA. To start the event, I will give you an overview of the full-time MBA at Smurfit, and then Michael McDonald from UCD Smurfit Careers Network will introduce some of the career supports available to MBA students. Hi, Michael. And our international student liaison, Yola Mar, will give you some practical information about relocating to Dublin. And then we have two students who moved to Ireland to join the full-time MBA at Smurfit, and they'll be with us a little bit later to talk with me about our experiences. And we'll close up with Owen Taff from our admissions team, who will give you an overview of the application process, as well as moderating the Q&A. To back up what Nelly said earlier, we do hope that you will ask whatever questions come to mind in the chat. In particular, if you have any questions for our student panel, I would ask you to please put those in the Q&A earlier rather than later, as they have to get to class. So they have a hard stop at 5:20 and won't be here for the official Q&A a little bit later. So to start with, I would like to take this opportunity to specifically welcome all of you for joining us from overseas. And for anyone who might not be familiar with UCD, you're coming in to now one of the top 1% of universities around the world. It is Ireland's global university with over 30,000 students and still growing. UCD Smurfit Business School is one of the longest established business schools in Europe. And we created one of the first, possibly the first, there's some contention about that, but definitely one of the first European MBA programs when we welcomed our first executive MBA class in 1964. From a program point of view, our MBA program is consistently ranked in the top 100 business schools annually. And we have a track record and reputation for delivering an outstanding program. A Smurfit MBA is recognized all over the world and has a significant reputation. Of course, one of the advantages of having this long history means that over the years, we have built up a considerable alumni community. So if you come to UCD Smurfit, you are joining a network of over 4,000 MBA alumni and over 90,000 business alumni around the world. And you can link into and take advantage of this alumni network through the Alumni Mentoring Program, which partners existing students with relevant alumni in their sectors of interest. Owen will go over the specifics of the part-time MBA programs during his presentation, and my remarks will focus on the full-time MBA experience, which is very helpfully my area of expertise as the full-time MBA program manager. The full-time Smurfit MBA is an intense one-year program designed to develop global business leaders from any discipline and across all industry sectors. So a lot of MBAs around the world, they do the same amount of material in 2 years that we focus into one. So we really expect you to be immersing yourself in your studies while you're here. It is recommended for those who are looking to study full-time and who are motivated by regular interaction with leading faculty and peers. And it is ideal for people looking to make a change in their career. as it offers extensive career support and coaching. The design of the program assumes that the full-time MBA will absorb most of your attention during the 12 months of your participation. As you can see from the chart above, full-time students tend, with some notable exceptions, to be younger and have less professional experience than students in the part-time program. The majority of students on the full-time MBA move to Ireland for the program, while students on the executive programs are based in Ireland already. So the MBA program office looks for ways to merge those different cohorts with their different experience levels and their different life experiences via promoting different networking opportunities, such as social clubs, social events, and MBA clubs, and leadership development program events. And in the spring, you will join the second year executive MBA students on some of your modules. Now, speaking of modules, to give you a taste of what you'll be working on, let's focus on the program itself. This slide gives you an example of some of the courses on our current MBA curriculum. Some of these are core, some of these are optional, depending also on your TOSA program. And while some MBA programs offer a similar portfolio, what we think makes the MBA different is the strength and depth and experience of our faculty. If you stop any of our MBAs in the corridor in the morning and ask them what they appreciate most, it will be the quality of the teaching and what happens in the classroom. Our strong industry links between the school and the corporate world mean that our academics are highly engaged with industry, and this in turn allows them to bring the changing world of business into the lecture halls and bring it to life in an engaging and practical way. The spring term in particular often features guest speakers from Irish companies. Now, I didn't specify which of these are core and which of these are option modules, and this is not a comprehensive list of all of our modules. The curriculum is regularly reviewed and revised to ensure that it stays relevant. You'll also have the opportunity to participate in some hands-on learning via the International Consulting Project and the MBA capstone project, which we will talk about in a bit later. So international experience is a core component, particularly of the full-time MBA. It starts in the fall of your fall trimester, your first trimester, with the Global Network for Advanced Management Immersion Week. You can see over there on the left, the 3 lucky students who were part of the last class that was actually able to travel for this. We're really hoping that people will be back to traveling to different universities again this October. That group went to Berkeley Haas, but the GNAM network comprises around 30 schools, and they all create week-long modules for students to participate in. And in a typical year, you will travel to that university and join other people who are interested in the topic of that module from business schools all over the world. So that is a truly international program on a variety of levels. As full-time MBA students, doing business in international markets and the International Consulting Project are both core modules. And for doing business in international markets, you will travel to a different culture, to Ireland, and participate in cultural activities and have meetings with executives. And for the International Consulting Project, we go to generally a small EU city, hopefully with a vibrant startup community. And we work on real world business projects over the course of 1 week. So you will have introduced yourself to your client company. I put client in quotes, before you go. And then when you get there, you'll have 3 intense days on the ground working to solve the problem that they have posed to you. And then you'll present it on the last day to a panel made up not only of executives from the company, but also the Smurfit MBA faculty who will be your mentors throughout the week. In addition to what's on the curriculum, we also support that material with a robust leadership development program. The Smurfit MBA aims to develop global leaders who are able to lead diverse teams and organizations anywhere in the world. And the leadership development program is an integral element of the Smurfit MBA and addresses leadership across 3 key areas, as you can see on the table: self, team, and organization. Now, as with our regular curriculum, the LDP is actually more flexible than the regular curriculum. And so we are constantly reviewing it to make sure that it meets the needs of both of our students and of the community that you're going to be hired into when you graduate. So specific offerings do change each year. But core elements of the LDP stay present. So you will definitely receive hands-on training in public speaking and storytelling in a corporate environment. Many of your assignments, especially in the autumn term, are team-based. So you will get a lot of training in best practices for working in teams. You will also get training in best practice for working in intercultural environments. And we offer the chance to participate in psychometric self-assessment and to work with an executive coach on developing your career goals, which is separate from the alumni mentoring in careers. Every term, the class elects 2 class reps who liaise between the student body and the program office, thus giving you an opportunity to practice leadership on that score as well. So I'm going to pass you on now to Michael McDonald, who will go over to some of the supports offered by the UCD Careers Network. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Catherine. It's delighted to be here this afternoon to chat to our potential new students coming in next end of August, early September. My name is Michael. I work here in the UCD Smurfit Careers Network, and it's great to see how the program is developing year in, year out. So thank you, Catherine, for giving us a quick taste of what our new students are likely to experience when they come here and join us. I'm just going to very quickly move to the slide that I will introduce our career services here at UCD Smurfit. Now, hopefully you can see that. It's a one-pager. It's an attempt, I suppose, in some way to summarize what you might get up to on the MBA careers program here at Smurfit. We are, as already pointed out, the top MBA business school here in Ireland. We have the pleasure of welcoming a number of different kinds of MBAs every year. We have people who come in on the full-time program, as Catherine already mentioned, people with different levels of experience. So the full-time MBA then is a shorter program, and more experienced guys, they come in a little bit over a longer period, and they've got probably 2 options open to them. One is the modular and the executive MBA, the EMBA. And the career service for both of these style of MBA candidates is slightly different, probably due to the differences in the curriculum, the timetables, etc., on how we can meet you throughout your time with us. So the full-time MBA is a much more structured program because these guys are trying to fit in so much into a one-year program. And we hit you heavy, right from the get-go, right from the outset. We're very keen to work with you to get your post-MBA career up and running at the earliest opportunity. And so there are quite a lot of activities right at the start of the program, focusing on getting your story straight, focusing on understanding what you have to offer, and understanding perhaps where you want to be post-program as well. So quite a lot of activity and self-reflection happening at that early start part of the program. Things we might focus on specifically would be CV and looking how to create a CV for the modern MBA. And, that can be quite a difficult challenge, particularly as perhaps some people aren't used to, particularly for career changers who might not be used to business CV. And then we have people who perhaps maybe have not looked at a CV for a few years. So it's good to get all of that self-reflection and, focus in on, what are your unique selling points right at the get-go, right in the early period, because as I'm sure current students shortly will attest to, and alumni, of course, that the program gets very busy very fast. So it is good to engage with the careers element of your program, right at the early part of the year. So there will be regular workshops and activities right throughout trimester 1 to get you up and running in terms of being able to, I suppose, have an idea of where you want to be post-program. One of the highlights of the program, of course, will be the mentoring program, which happens in trimester 2, where you will be matched with a senior Smurfit alumnus, right, who will help you guide you a little bit more as well in terms of what and where it is you want to be post-program. We also get heavily involved in skills around job search and job acquisition, particularly in terms of telling your story from a verbal perspective around mock interviews. So they will happen in trimester 2. So lots of activities there to engage with throughout the program. Also, I suppose in the past, we would have perhaps sometimes described the career program as the third pillar, because of course, Catherine has already described the academic program, and then you have your LDP program. But then of course, you must not forget that career search is ultimately why you are here. So that is the third pillar of the program. For our part-time folks, people who are here perhaps to do the executive MBA or the modular, the careers program is a little bit more flexible for them, and they can join us at any time and start it at any time throughout their 2 years with us. And they perhaps might have a slightly different slant in terms of these day-long boot camps and networking workshops. So there is a slight difference in the way the program is delivered, right? I suppose I would only be, my purpose here today is just to highlight a few areas for you. And one probably would be around employment data, right? I think that's something that always interests potential students here at Smurfit. And if you can see there from the class of 21, we do surveys every year on where people are at within 3 months rather of graduating. And so it's good to note that, you know, 90% of, at least 90% of the class are employed, and the salaries are way up, right? So average salaries increases about 132%. Right? That is the full-time MBA class, and that would be the data from the class of 21. The executive MBA data from the class of 20, within 1 year of graduating, 92% were promoted. So that would be the big, I suppose, statistic, and that is slightly different because, of course, the executive MBAs, modular MBAs tend to be in job, whereas our friends on the full-time program, of course, you guys are going to leave your job and come with us for a year. And if you look down the very end there, you'll see some of the very well-regarded and well-known brands of the type of employer partner that works with us here at Smurfit. So the likes of McKinsey, right through to the techies. We've got, of course, the likes of Google and, you know, TikTok, some of the newer guys coming aboard with us as well, HubSpot. And then looking at new areas of development in terms of energy, you know, green energy, mainstream renewable power would be a company that has worked with us recently as well. So I'm just keeping this very high level, short and sweet, and I'm going to now finish there. And if you have any questions, just put them into the Q&A or the chat, and we will be happy to answer those later on. And I'll pass over now to my colleague, Yola. Yola, would you like to take over from me here now, please?
Thank you so much, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Yola Mar, and in my role as the International Students Liaison Officer here in Michael Smurfit Graduate School of Business, I support all international students here in the school. I have a couple of slides to take you through and let you know what the, okay, I think we're ready to go. So basically, let me introduce the role to you and the supports that there are here in the school. I look after students who come to Ireland from the moment you guys apply for the program. So, or even if you just consider applying for the program, I'm there to answer your questions. I'm here to help you with any queries you might have when you're making a decision to come to Ireland. I'm sure there's loads of cons and pros you're considering. So I'm here to answer questions together with the team that we have here in Smurfit. We all support the incoming students. I provide immigration advice. I help students settling in Ireland. And post-arrival, I also help with integrational activities, student engagements, events, etc., etc. So what I'd like to do is introduce a handbook that I've put together for all international students. And my colleague is going to put a link to the handbook just there in a minute or two, so you'll be able to have a look and browse through it. And it's basically a reference, if you like, for all students coming to Ireland. And it's designed to help you before you arrive to make decisions and to familiarize yourself with topics, but also to help you with managing the first few days and weeks post-arrival. So that's kind of the main information reference point that I'd like to share with you. What I would like to also do is to direct you to Education in Ireland website. This is a resource where you'll be able to get a taste from other students, those who study in Ireland, so not necessarily in UCD, but also in other institutions in different cities all over the country. And they talk about their experiences of being a student in Ireland. And I think it's a very interesting angle. And it's really good to get and hear their perspective and get some tips. So there's a blog, there's an Instagram account, there's also a YouTube channel. And I've linked them all up in my handbook. So you'll be able to find it once you browse through the handbook. Additionally, I've put together a link to the cost of living website. This is a resource from the UCD Global office. Again, it's really important when making your decisions to know how much it's going to cost. So again, that's quite practical and it's in the handbook. Accommodation, that's a really massive area. And it does take a lot of effort to find a perfect place to live. So we always advise students to come early and most importantly, not to book accommodation before coming to Ireland. Now, if you're staying on campus, that's a very different situation. But if you're living off campus, not on UCD campus, then what we would recommend is come a little bit earlier, shop around, look at places and only book accommodation if you actually arrive and view it and see it personally. There are a lot of resources in the handbook. There is a student union advice on accommodation. We have student testimonials. I have a few guides. We will have an accommodation advice webinar in mid-May. So this information will be emailed to you probably end of this month or early May. So there will be, and there is a lot of resources, okay? Additionally, there is a really good information source. It's called citizensinformation.ie. It's not necessarily aimed at citizens only. It's anybody living in Ireland, so residents and citizens. And it basically provides a very comprehensive information on public services. So quite a formal and a legal angle, but it's good to get that angle, to understand how things work officially, how they're structured. So for example, topics that you might want to check out now are around moving to Ireland or renting a home. What are your rights as a tenant? What are your entitlements, etc., etc. So I thought that's a really good resource for you guys to quickly browse when you're researching that topic. So once again, if there's anybody here who would like to find out more about living in Ireland, moving to Dublin, relocating and starting your studies in UCD, please drop me an email. I'm available at iola.mar@ucd.ie. And if there's any queries in relation to applying to program, please contact my colleagues at admissions, which is smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie. So I'm going to say thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm going to hand over to Catherine, who will talk to you about other areas. Thank you so much. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Yola. And I am going to welcome two of our full-time MBA students, and James and Abhimanyu, if you can turn on your cameras. James and Abhimanyu have both joined us here from abroad. James comes from the United States, and Abhimanyu joins us from India via the United Arab Emirates. So he's already had quite a bit of international experience even before he arrived in Ireland. We'll start with a few questions. If you have any questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A. And because as I mentioned, our students have to get to class, so they won't have time to be here for the official Q&A at the end. But if you have any student-specific questions, drop them into the box and we will try to get to them during this panel. So we'll start with Abhimanyu. Can you tell me what inspired you to pursue an MBA and why did you decide to do it in Ireland?
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for the question. So I think my inspiration behind the MBA was threefold. I think firstly, I wanted to like it was the part around academics. So when you work in your day-to-day job, it's kind of, you work on a very micro level. and all your actions revolve around that. I wanted to have a flavor of studying corporate finance, accounts, operations, digital transformation, which you generally wouldn't do during your day-to-day job. So I think the first point there was academics. The second point was perspective. So being in a class where you have classmates from all around the world, they bring in a lot of diversity in terms of their experience, in terms of their culture, and in terms of their perspectives. So you learn to see through their eyes, and when you work on team projects with one common problem, you learn to solve one problem through different solutions. So I think that is something really interesting. And the third and most important thing was a network. So I think someone very rightly said there's a book about it, like your net worth is your network. So I think the UCD MBA really allows you to connect with a lot of diverse alumni all across the globe, and they're working at very senior positions and at a very diverse sort of spectrum of companies. So this is the alumni. You also have access to your cohort, who you study with, and then also you've got access to such a uh, highly qualified and with a lot of prowess the faculty who teach here. So I think you have an all-round ability to network with such diverse people. So these were my three reasons. And why I chose Ireland is because apart from being a very beautiful place to stay in, you have really warm people. And I think one of the key points why I chose this MBA was because it's located in Dublin. So Dublin's a hub for many, I think out of the top 10 companies, five or six are based out of Dublin in terms of their European headquarters or the EMEA operations. So whatever you learn, you have access to these companies to get in touch with them and practice whatever you learn. So these were my reasons.
Well, thank you very much. And James, what was a challenge that you expected when you decided to apply for the MBA, and how did that play out once you got here?
Thank you, Catherine. I'd been in the workforce for several years. I'm maybe one of those students outside of the norm. You mentioned that I'm not quite at the average age. I'm a little bit over it. So I'd been quite a few years in a corporate setting and working. And so I was a little worried about coming back into student academic life and readjusting to the student life. It was probably more just fear and anxiety on my side. Everyone has been really warm and welcoming. It's fantastic support from all the program administration as well as professors. There were a few rocky points during that first semester. I'll say, exam period, being back in exams when you haven't done exams for a few years is a very nerve-wracking type thing. But you mentioned the teams that the project work that we have during that first term. I really relied on a lot of my team members to help out, and it's a really great way to build those relationships with people and help smooth the transition from everyday working life back into an academic setting.
Great, thank you. I'm actually going to go over to the chat because we have several people who have asked for some of the industry background from the class. So Abhimanyu, I know you served as class rep, so you got to know people pretty well. Can you tell us a little bit about what your cohorts have done in their past lives pre-MBA?
Oh, absolutely. So I think we've got a very diverse cohort because we have engineers, we have people who, like, I'm a mechanical engineer. From even within engineering, you've got a different spectrum from IT, from electronics, electrical engineering. But apart from that, we have people who come from healthcare, we have people who come from finance, we have people who come from consulting. We have people, like I have a classmate who was a physiotherapist in his previous life. So there's a huge, diversity of backgrounds where people come from.
Great, thank you. And James, what has surprised you the most about the UCD Smurfit MBA?
I think I was really surprised by the smallness and the tightness of the class. It really is fantastic that it is, it's not a very large class and you get to know people very well. And then that means that you also get a lot of interactions with professors and with other resources. And, Ireland in general, it's a very tight-knit community. And I'm just amazed at sometimes if I go and I talk to Michael or I talk to one of my professors and I'm asking for, a contact, people just are able to rattle names off the top of their head. And so people really know each other here, are very willing to share that information. And it's just fantastic to be able to take advantage of that.
Thank you. And Abhimanyu, what aspect of the MBA do you expect will be the most useful in your future career?
I think it was Sydney Harris who once said that, the purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. So I think this is something which the Smurfit MBA does really well. So I think for me, what it did was it really completely changed the way I used to think about things. So like I said, it gives you that perspective. So, it gives you that ability to zoom out and have a look at the bigger picture, which I think I could not do prior to the MBA, allows you to understand how different things function the way they do, how different people function the way they do. So I think it gives you that element of perspective, and you are able to think more on long-term goals than look at short-term benefits. So I think perspective is something, and the way I think about every small thing is something which has changed because of the MBA here.
Thank you very much. And I am actually going to put this one to both of you, but since Abhimanyu, you talked last, I'll ask James first. What advice would you give to students who are relocating to Dublin?
I think I probably have two pieces of advice. So first of all, follow the resources that you get. Yola's handbook is amazing. I can't tell you how many times, especially in that first term, that I went back and looked up links and information in there, and it really just helped guide me through the process. So it's all there. You can always go and ask people questions as well, but there's a lot of resources that are already available to you when you're coming. The second piece of advice is probably try to get to know Dublin a little bit as a city before you get here. If you haven't had a chance to visit before, it's not a bad idea to read about the city. I like to look at Google Maps a lot, so I always try to figure, how do I get from the campus to, a museum somewhere or some tourist attraction, right? But you get a sense for what do the bus lines look like? What do the train lines look like? And when you get to that, apartment hunting that Yola was talking about, it is very complicated in Dublin. And it really helps if you have that understanding of the city before you arrive, rather than just trying to figure out everything once you're off the plane here.
Abhimanyu?
I think adding on to probably what James said is that since it's a one-year course, you sort of hit the ground running, when you start the program. So I would probably advise people who sort of have a direction of what they want to get into, start connecting with alumni, let them know that you're an incoming student, get their perspective on their experience, and start building your network, because once you start studying, time really flies really fast. So I think that would be one point of advice. I think secondly, I would say that don't be afraid of asking for help, because the school has a lot of resources in place, and everyone is more than happy to help you out. So like I remember during one of my interviews, I reached out to Mark in the careers team, and I'd asked for a mock interview, and he was not well at the time, but he still gave me time to discuss a few points I was weak at, and he helped me out, and which really helped me during my interview. So don't be shy from asking for help, and there's a lot of resources available with the school. And the last thing I would say is that like it rains a lot in Ireland. So, and like there's something which I learned here. So there's no such thing as bad weather, it's bad clothing.
Yes.
So that is something to be mindful of.
I think that's something we all have to learn. Well, those are all of my questions, and I've had a look at the chat and the Q&A, and we don't have any student-focused questions. So I'll just ask, do either of you have any last words for our prospective students? No is a perfectly acceptable answer, but if you do, now is the time.
I can probably go first. So I think before starting the MBA, someone told me like doing the MBA is like drinking out of a fire hydrant. So there's a lot happening, and you often get overwhelmed as to, do I go for this event? Do I do this? Do I do that? So I think it's okay to sometimes relax and be all right. Like, like I think getting burnt out is something a lot of my classmates had faced. So I think sometimes you will be studying in a beautiful country, so do take out time to unwind, relax, and enjoy the country as well.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, again, if you're considering and you're looking at schools in different places and trying to compare programs, I do think one of the fantastic offerings that Smurfit has is the international component. I mean, Ireland, as Avi said, is very central to a lot of business, but it is tied into the European Union, and there's a lot of contact here with the European Union. So you're really already in that international environment. And, from my background in the United States, I feel like the schools in the United States are very focused on American business, where here I constantly feel like there's a lot of thinking about other areas of the world and really trying to understand that international focus. And that was really important to me. I think it's a fantastic aspect of the program.
Thank you both very much.
I think I would want to add on to that one point, I think, which really surprised me about the MBA was how internationally focused, like James was saying, the program is. In term one, I had a module at Yale, which was phenomenal. Term two, we had an international study trip to Scandinavia, where we traveled to Germany, one group, and there we went to Stockholm and Copenhagen. And I'm doing a module at NUS Singapore through Global Network of Advanced Management, which is GNAM again. And in term three, we're doing our international consulting project in Portugal. So you really get to practice whatever you learn during the MBA in international business environments. So I think that is a very strong point which the program has.
Thank you both very much. And good luck in digital transformation this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And now I will pass over to Owen Taff from our admissions team. And he will talk you through the process of actually applying.
Catherine, thanks a million. I'm going to say both to James and his name has escaped me, but thanks to the two MBA students who
That was Abhimanyu.
Thank you very much. I got the first part. It was Abby, and then the rest of it escaped me. So Abhimanyu and James, thank you very, very much for a really insightful piece about the MBA and that real student experience, which is critically important to articulate. So I'm going to talk to everybody about the admissions criteria and admissions for the MBA programs. Just bear with me 1 second while I share my screen. Apologies, 1 second. Yeah, that's much better. So first I'm going to say thank you to Catherine. Some of the details that she presented at the start, I suppose, go to support what I'm going to say here now. As I discussed, look, the wider program and look, I suppose, the entry criteria. So I suppose one of the first things I suppose we tend to get asked is why the Smurfit MBA versus the peer programs that you may want to consider. Three of the key things, I suppose, when we look and we articulate, I suppose, the value proposition of the Smurfit MBA is, number one, we've been consistently ranked in the top 100 for a significant period of time. So both the Financial Times and The Economist strongly ranks our MBA program. Given I suppose, look, the reputation it's had over the last number of years, we've quite a broad global reach. Given our relationship and involvement with some key academic and professional networks. So as Catherine referenced earlier on, our GAMS, which is our global network for advanced management. So all the top business schools around the world are members of this, and students have the opportunity then to partake in GNAM programs at the start of or during semester one. So it's a great opportunity to get exposure and experience from other institutions and other ways of thinking. I suppose one of the key things as well that the top business schools have would be that what we refer to as the triple crown of accreditation. So what that gives, or what that shows, is that we have, I suppose, achieved the gold standard within the MBA program. So it's one, when you consider a program to review and to consider, it gives a stamp of approval and a seal of approval to show you that the program that you undertake is of the best quality, delivered by top academics. I suppose looking at the important stuff that relates to entry to the MBA program. So from an international student perspective, you would be considering or looking at the full-time MBA program. Our modular or executive programs are for, suppose, candidates that would be either resident in Ireland or within the EU and would have the option of studying part-time. But from an international student perspective, you would need to consider the full-time MBA program only. So when we look at candidates, I suppose a number of criteria that we look for. Okay, so entry criteria would be a minimum of 3 years professional work experience. So when we look at a candidate, we want to see that you've graduated from your undergraduate degree a minimum of 3 years ago, and I suppose have some substantial work experience showing growth and development within leadership or strategic role positions. So that shows us within the classroom environment, that brings a level of experience and knowledge that will enhance your experience in the classroom and also those of your peers as well. Part of the application we look to see is that you provide us with 3 short essays. So they're really focused around your rationale for undertaking and studying the MBA program, how you feel it will benefit you post-graduation, and I suppose importantly, what you can bring to that MBA environment and MBA classroom. So I suppose it's in a sense showing what you can bring and what you contribute to that classroom environment. We look for references from either current or former employers. We also do an initial online video interview. Okay, so that is part of your initial assessment. And there are a number of key questions there that you'll be asked to address. You're given time to practice those. So I suppose it's not designed to catch you out or make it uncomfortable. You get a chance to practice some dummy questions so that you're comfortable and familiar with the system and are able to articulate your responses clearly. I suppose most importantly is an up-to-date CV. So we want to see, look, what you've done, how you've done it, how you've grown from a career perspective. Fundamental to the Smurfit MBA, I suppose one of the key criteria is a GMAT or EA. Okay, so this is something that we require all candidates to undertake and submit. Okay, so if you're considering the full-time program, we accept both the GMAT and the EA exam. So from a GMAT perspective, we look for a minimum score of 600 out of 800. For the EA, it's a 151 out of 200. Now, I suppose, as I say, they're the minimum scores. We would tend to see candidates will present with scores in excess of those minimums, and they will tend to be in the region of, from a GMAT perspective, anywhere between 680 and 720, 730 on an average, and similar equivalence with the EA. Fundamentally, I suppose the GMAT is critically important from your perspective, because I suppose it shows the quality that's in that classroom, given that everybody who sits in the room will have sat that exam. Number 2, it opens up a number of scholarship opportunities for you. So I suppose that the stronger you score within the GMAT or EA, the greater the opportunity for significant scholarship funding. So at the moment, the Smurfit School is offering a weekly GMAT prep session. So that is online, delivered virtually every Thursday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. It's only started last week. So if you're interested in taking a look at those the GMAT and EA prep sessions, by all means, go onto our events page and all the details are there. It's free to use. All you need to do is to log in at that 7 o'clock session. So I suppose, as we've articulated, we offer 3 different types of MBA program. I suppose each one is slightly nuanced with respect to the cohort it focuses on. But I suppose fundamentally, from an international perspective, we will find, I suppose, the full-time program will be the one that is, I suppose, most important and most attractive to you. So it's very much designed, I suppose, as an immersive, intensive 1-year program. As Catherine pointed out, in a lot of, I suppose, international environments, MBAs run over a 2-year period within the context of the Smurfit MBA, it's a 12-month intensive program. So from the moment you start to the moment you finish, it's a very, very full-on and full program for you to build and learn and enhance your skill sets. It's very much designed around, I suppose, candidates who are looking to maybe to grow their current role or change sector and take that next significant step in their career from middle to senior management. So here's just a couple of little links here that are of relevance and importance. So we have an MBA student blog. Okay, so that's accessible on smurfitschoolblog.com. So it's a section there where our MBA students, I suppose, give voice to their experience to date within the MBA program, look at the challenges and the experiences that they've had on GNAM, the study tour, the overall Smurfit experience, and again, look how it's helped build and change them with respect to growing their careers. Another couple of links there. Okay, so Smurfit News, which is obviously our up-to-date activities within the school environment. Smurfit webinars, so all of our activity from a webinar perspective is accessible there. Smurfit school events, so the GMAT and EA assessment link is available under the events tab. As I say, it's scheduled every Thursday at 7 p.m. and it runs for 2 hours. So again, just following on, again, one of the key things that we have is not only is the MBA very focused academically, but it's very much focused on the MBA students building their extracurricular activities and looking to enhance their skill sets and knowledge, not only from an academic perspective, but from a wider intercultural and business and corporate perspective. So we run a number of clubs and societies which are run and managed by the MBA students. So we've got GEMBA, we've a consulting club, FinTech. I'm going to say that I know they're the ones listed, but there's a multitude of more. And I suppose one of the things we try and encourage students to do is that if they have an interest in areas, is to look to grow and develop that within the context of that MBA program, and to allow you to enhance not only the experience for yourself, but also for your peers in class. So that's just a whistle-stop tour of the overall MBA applications process and the requirements that we would have. So I'm just going to take a quick look here now at our Q&A and see if we have any additional questions that we can answer. So now I see in the Q&A, okay, so some questions just with respect to eligibility from start date. Okay, so I suppose if you're graduating this year from an MBA perspective, you would need to consider, I suppose, 3 to 4 years out for an MBA program. If you're looking to do a postgraduate, you could consider an MSc program, but from the MBA perspective, as I referenced in the slides, you need to have that minimum of 3 years of professional work experience before you would be considered. The program fee, I see a question there with respect to the program fee. So the program fee for the full-time program is €35,000 for the 1-year program. We do offer a range of scholarships and they are detailed on our Smurfit MBA page. I'm going to say I see again a question here relating to English language requirements. So yes, we do accept Duolingo and we also accept TOEFL, PTE, IELTS. The requirements are quite specific to the MBA program and would tend to be higher than the average for university entry. So as an example, we would look for an IELTS of 7 with no band lower than 6.5. So again, I suppose from an English language perspective and an international student environment, we make sure that everybody, I suppose, is comfortable and up to speed, given the detail and complex nature of the MBA program. I'm just scanning through the questions here. So the question as well with respect to, I suppose, working part-time while undertaking the MBA. So look, I suppose I'll give it a general response, but I might ask Michael and Catherine maybe if they've just a few thoughts with respect to that working during the MBA program. So the MBA program, look, is a very, very intense full-time program. So from the moment that you start at the end of August, all the way through that 12-month program, you're going to be doing a number of projects, significant amount of coursework, opportunities to travel overseas, both for the GNAM weeks and the consultancy projects as well. So the program is designed in a sense to be very, very intense, to push your limits, and I suppose to stretch you with respect to growing from a career perspective. So we would always guide, I suppose, particularly from an MBA perspective, that working while undertaking the MBA within a part-time role may not be the most beneficial approach from your perspective. 12 months within I suppose the aspect of a program is relatively short, so it's making sure you make the most of that 12-month window with the view to growing your career post-graduation, and making sure that you access and identify, I suppose, that correct sector and correct potential employer, and work toward that goal while you're undertaking that MBA program. So maybe Michael and Catherine, have any thoughts there?
I think that covered it really well. I would also, I am not 100% clear on what the current restrictions are for working if you are in Ireland on a student visa. I think the last time I checked, it was something like 10 hours a week.
So it's 20 hours.
Is it 20 hours now? Oh, good, they've upped it. So that itself is a limiting factor. But there is also the concern that, it is a lot of work squeezed into a very intense period of time, and your professors and your teammates will pretty much be expecting that this is your focus for the year that you're here.
Do you want to say something there?
And myself? Yes, no, I just wanted to basically step in to say it is up to 20 hours during term time. Out of term, mid-December to mid-January, students are allowed to work up to 40 hours, and equally in the summer. So from 1st of June until 30th of from 1st of June until 30th of September. So for the 4 months on the student visa, students are also allowed to work up to 40 hours. So but that's, I suppose, down the road. We're talking about you starting in UCD and working during your studies. As my colleagues have mentioned, it's a full-time program, so you should consider it as a full-time job. So you'll be doing at least 40 hours a week of work for your MBA. So it's really intense. So I think what we're trying to say here is discourage you from planning to do a big job or a job, at least initially for the first few months. We would not encourage you to be looking for a job, really. It's very busy.
I will also say that last summer term, you're going to be working on your capstone, which is 40 hours a week of field work. So yeah, you're going to be busy.
Perfect. Look, thanks, Catherine, Michael, and Yola for that. I suppose I saw another question there that I suppose was around program delivery, and I suppose the possibility of hybrid or online. So I suppose what I'd say, within an Irish context, we're back to fully in-person teaching. So there's no view to shifting back to online or hybrid. We're very much, I suppose, an on-campus based university, and Smurfit prides itself on that campus delivery. So we intend to and plan to deliver all of our programs on campus in a classroom environment and in a classroom setting, and we would expect all our students to be on campus in that classroom setting. Particularly, I suppose, with the focus of the MBA, the learning is vitally important, and that peer-to-peer learning, both from your peers, led by some very, very eminent academics, happens in that classroom environment. So it's critically important that you're there to experience it and gain the full benefits of that environment. I'm just looking here for any more additional questions.
We do have a question in the chat about if I couldn't get the required score on IELTS or equivalent test, can the school help students with the pre-master course?
Straight answer to that question is no.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Very, very, very honest. I won't beat around the bush. No, I suppose with an MBA program, there is no pre-master's pathway. You must score the required entry criteria for direct entry. There's no indirect route.
Thank you.
But what I will say, look, is I suppose from an English language perspective, there's varying different tests we accept. I'm going to say we accept IELTS, TOEFL, PTE, Duolingo, PTE. Did I say PTE? So there's a varying number of tests that are offered. There are varying opinions on them. I suppose I'll always say you pick the one that best suits you. Some are harder than others. So it's just making sure that you get one that works for you, but also B, obviously that you meet the minimum criteria that are stipulated by the university for entry onto the MBA program. So a question there, I'm going to say one final question before we wrap it up, I suppose. So the batch size, so generally speaking, we will have an MBA class size of in the region of about 35 to 45 students would be the ballpark figure. That can vary each year. I suppose it will depend, but generally speaking, and Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, please do. I would say ballpark, we have that batch size for the full-time program will be in the round of 35 to 45 students.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. We'll just go one final quick check to make sure I haven't missed anything.
Owen, there was a question which I answered live about when should students apply for a visa to Ireland. So as a general rule, it's approximately 3 months prior to arrival. So not prior to starting the program, prior to arrival. So if you're arriving, let's say sometime maybe early August or first week of August, because we do recommend for you to come early to look for accommodation. And I think, as I mentioned, especially during the summer, the demand is always higher than the supply. So we would recommend the earlier you come, the better it is. So we're going back, when you count back the months and the weeks, it's approximately 3 months prior to arrival is when you can apply for a visa. Not much earlier and not much later, because once you receive your visa, it is granted for 3 months for you to enter Ireland. So isn't that right, Owen? You did not. So I think that
no,
is.
you're right. Look, I mean, I suppose from a visa perspective, I'll always say it'll depend on the jurisdiction that you're applying from. Has it impact and influence on it? It'll depend on where the visa is processed, has an impact and an influence on it. But I suppose back to Yola's point, generally speaking, from a student visa perspective, applications can be submitted from the 1st of May onwards. So it's important to submit that application as early as is humanly possible. The earlier you submit your application, the quicker the visa will be possibly turned around, assuming that you meet the criteria for the visa. And once you have that visa in hand, then you're able to travel. Particularly with the MBA program, we look to have candidates to Ireland as early as possible. They do an intensive week in advance of all the other students joining the campus. So I suppose it's incumbent on you to be here for that. It's critical, and it's a mandatory piece of the MBA program. So it's factoring all those small little pieces in to make sure that you have that visa on time. Okay, so folks, before I wrap it up, has anyone any final words to say, or any final comments?
I hope this has been clarifying, and I'm looking forward to meeting lots of you.
Okay, perfect. Everyone, look, thank you very much, and look to the panelists, thank you very much, and to the guests, thank you very, very much as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hope
Thank
to
you,
see you
Emma.
in Dublin soon.